Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this Lunch and Learn. This is a fundraiser and a fundraiser, and we are so excited to have folks from across the state and the country joining us. We're showing a really strong number of attendees, which is fantastic for August and a Tuesday. I'm Meredith Miller. I'm the chair of the Women's Council of the Washtenaw Community College Foundation. This is going to be such a great webinar today. It is going to be recorded, so you can pass it on if you'd like to. The PowerPoint will also be available for you. It'll be on the Women's Council portion of the Washtenaw Community College website. For those of you not familiar with the Women's Council, our mission is to endow scholarships. We work as mentors for the students, and we seek funds for the emergency fund, which is also referred to as the Women Helping Women program for the Women's Council. Thanks to our previous chair, Eileen Thacker, who was instrumental in forging that special fund for us. The emergency fund takes on new importance for us today, if not dire importance for our students who are predominantly women and people of color. We all know that our students have been hardest hit by this pandemic. They are on the front lines of businesses, healthcare services, and county and government services. And so today we are answering their request for emergency funds and for a broader community support and for a deeper understanding of the challenges they face as women and people of color during this pandemic and economic crisis. So we really think of today as a community conversation. What can we do and how can we do it? We have a terrific, informative, and inspiring lineup today. We will open with words from our college president and CEO, followed by experts from the University of Michigan discussing the impact of COVID on women and people of color. And we will hear from a student recipient of the emergency fund. You will have several opportunities to contribute, if you can, today to the emergency fund. And so it's only fitting that Dr. Belanca, our university president, leads the charge here. She's fearless in her own right, having been the first in her family to attend college. She has deep roots in Michigan. And prior to joining Washtenaw Community College, she's been at the helm as president and chief operating officer at 3 to 4 other colleges. She's fought tirelessly to keep Washtenaw affordable and accessible for our students. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Belanca for her opening words.
So good afternoon. Thank you, Meredith. And I want to thank you for leading this effort today and for the kind words that you have said. And I would like to welcome all of you to this important meeting about how COVID-19 has affected women and people of color. Today's presentation will provide you with research, information, and perspectives about how several groups of people from our community have endured a larger number of difficulties during this pandemic and perhaps while this has happened. And before I move on, I want to thank you, all of you, first of all, for joining us for this virtual session. Unfortunately, even though it's over a screen, or I should say fortunately, it's so good to see all of you. We were unable to hold the Women's Council luncheon in June, so I'm very grateful that you could join us and that you made time to join us for this virtual event. And perhaps this will be the first of many types of presentations, and I hope to see those in the future. I especially want to thank Meredith again, the chair of the Women's Council, for working with the WCC Foundation to plan this timely conversation. I also want to recognize all of the Women's Council members that are with us here today who work throughout the year to develop programs, events that are supporting our students, especially the students with issues that are being endured by our women students. I also want to thank any members of the WCC Board of Directors and Foundation Board members who may be attending this event and also thank the Board of Trustees for their support and interest. Your ongoing support of our students is greatly appreciated. And finally, I'd like to give a special hello to Representative Debbie Dingle for joining us. As you know, Representative Dingle is a strong supporter of students, of education, of women, really of people, of all colors, all races, all religions. She's an amazing representative. Thank you, Debbie, for joining us today. As you would imagine, Washtenaw Community College has many students that are part of or one of the groups that are being discussed today. These students have encountered a variety of difficulties over the past several months, including job loss, lack of money to afford food, rent, and utilities. And of great concern, in addition to that, is now we're really seeing the effects of the digital divide, because with education being offered remotely, we see that we have so many students that have a lack of technology to participate successfully in remote classes. Since March, mid-March, I can't believe it's been this long. The college, WCC, and I have been closely tracking these ongoing issues. And we've been extremely concerned and have been working diligently to help as many students as possible to overcome these barriers and these problems. And this has been done through a number of departments. And I want to have a shout out, first of all, to thank our amazing faculty, our counselors, our advisors, our staff. They have been working with students, especially those that are having these difficulties, so intently, and thank you. I also, there have been, our student services staff has been amazing. Our IT staff has worked with them in providing them with the needs that they may have. And of course, a special thank you to our foundation, because our foundation has been the salvation for so many of them. I'm pleased to report that we've assisted hundreds, if not thousands, of students to overcome some of their difficulties, remain in school, and continue working toward their finish line. This has included offering laptops, software, and hotspots to hundreds of students that did not have the technology needed to continue with their classes. While we've made good progress, there still are many students in the community, as I mentioned before, who are on the wrong side of the digital divide and do not have the support they need. And my team and I are continually working on ways to solve this issue, especially as we move forward with the beginning of the fall semester. And if you have any suggestions or advice, I would love to hear from you as to some of your ideas as to how we might be able to address this issue. I'm also happy to report that the WCC Foundation has been able to meet the needs of hundreds of other students by offering help through our Student Emergency Fund. And this program is funded entirely through private donations and the funds that are given directly to eligible applicants. Thank you to all of you that have donated to the Student Emergency Fund. And I think at this time I need a shout out to Sheena Barker for her dedication and diligence in meeting the needs of these students. Over the past semester, the foundation saw a 200% increase in the number of requests that it received for assistance. These requests seem much more urgent than in past semesters and have been primarily for help with food shortages, high utility bills, and for laptops. And it's so hard to hear about students who, digital divide is one thing, but, we have students who can't even afford food. But the good news is that the foundation has been able to offer direct help by sending grocery store gift cards to buy food, pay utilities directly to the electric or gas company, and by having laptops sent directly to the students' homes. This has helped students get back online, take part in their classes, and even complete their degrees in the midst of the pandemic. I want to make sure that I remember to also have a shout out here to Vice President Phil Snyder for his leadership and the team that works alongside of him in the foundation's office. They are very, very dedicated. And if we didn't have dedicated people, none of this would be possible. And by the way, I just want you to know that we've been tracking the students who have received assistance from the Student Emergency Fund. And we have found that over 80% of those helped have either stayed in school or have graduated. Providing a small amount of help, $500 or less, has allowed students to succeed. I want to once again thank so many people in the community, including many of you, for providing the funding that we rely on to help our students. Later on in this program, you'll be offered a chance to personally assist our students. And finally, I want to thank our speakers for being here today to provide us with an update on what has happened during this pandemic. Like you, I look forward to this important presentation. And thank you for being here today. And I look forward to the day that we'll be able to sit down and have a cup of coffee and chat again. So thank you. Have a wonderful presentation, and I wish you well.
Thank you, Dr. Belanca. Those are inspiring words. I would like to underscore what the emergency fund means to students. I mean, the fund literally keeps students in the classroom. This is a one-time up to $500 grant during an academic year. And as Dr. Belanca said, it pays for these kinds of emergencies related to food shortages, utilities, car breaking down. But I think the key issue is that it keeps students in the classroom. And there's a committee that screens it. They meet within a subgroup, and within 24 hours, they respond to the student's request for emergency funds. And so what's amazing about this is that it's road tested. We know that over 80%, that it makes a difference, that 80% of the students that receive the emergency funds are able to stay in the classroom, and it makes the sure driver of their ability to graduate and either go out into the workforce or to attend a four-year college. With a 200% increase in request, you can only imagine how desperate and important these funds are for students right now during the pandemic. And so we're really building on the work that we've been doing for the Women's Council, which has been around for 25 years. We've been dedicated to supporting the women advancement. 57% of the community colleges student population is female. And many of those women are single parents, and also the main provider for not only their children, but for their parents themselves. And so it's critically important that they be able to achieve their education, because we know that that's one of the single most important drivers for economic stability, for an adequate retirement, and for the ability to have a quality of life. And I do want to do another shout out. I know we're shouting out a lot. So for those folks outside of Michigan, bear with us. Our community is so important to us. Our previous chair, Eileen Thacker, worked tirelessly last year. We were able to raise through the luncheon, the annual luncheon, which we will have again this year, October 29th. I hope you'll join us. but we were able to raise $40,000 last year for not only the emergency fund, but for the Women's Resource Center. Over the last couple of years under Dr. Balanca's leadership, she really has focused on broadening this our community engagement in Washtenaw County and across the state. And as we know, it's so important. We're inextricably tied to the economic health and vibrancy of our community, since we draw from the community and we go back out into the community, contributing to the workforce and to all of our different walks of life. So we rise together and we fall together, which is why helping our students means strengthening our community. So strength is really what we need now as we face the challenges of the pandemic, the economic crisis, and questions about social justice. Here to help us understand our challenges and the opportunities, a model for both Michigan, but also for those of you outside of Michigan who are attending this across the country, are our experts from the University of Michigan, the Center for Health Research and Transformation, who will walk us through these important issues. I would like to mention specifically that they'll be talking about the relationship between gender inequality and COVID-19. They'll be helping us to explore how COVID-19 disproportionately affects people living in poverty and people of color, and the importance of social supports for women affected by COVID-19. You'll be able to ask questions through the chat feature of Zoom, and we'll be able to field those. And if we can't get to all of them, we'll definitely get back to you. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our speakers for today from the University of Michigan. We have two speakers. Robin Rontel is the Policy Analytics Director for the Center, and joining her is Deidre Hurst, who is the Lead Analyst of Systems Integration and Health Equity. Thank you, Deidre and Robin, so much for your presentation today.
Hey, it's Robin on the call. I think she was going to go ahead and kick us off, and I'll get our presentation set up. Was Robin, do you know if Robin was on the call, or if not, I can just go ahead and.
Sarah, did Robin chime in?
I have not seen her yet.
Well, maybe she'll be able to join us later. Sometimes there's technical difficulties with these types of things, but we are just excited to be here today. Again, my name is Dr. Deidre Hurst, and I work for CHART, which is the Center for Health Research Transformation. And today, we are here for such a great cause. And the goal of our time here today is just really, again, to discuss the goal for our time here today is to discuss COVID-19, and particularly the impacts on women of color and people who are in poverty. So we'll start with a quote. Helen B. Gale is the president and CEO of the Chicago Community Trust. She has a strong sense of how poverty impacts women, and she also understands the power that women have when it comes to addressing poverty. The ellipse at the end of the quote on your screen indicates where she goes on to say that if you change the life of a girl or a woman, you don't just change that individual, you change her family and her community. And I think that it's appropriate in this setting to realize the impact of helping women along their academic and career journeys. So first, let's just get on the same page with some basic COVID data. Since the start of the pandemic, the reported number of COVID-19 cases in the United States has created this rise, plateau, rise line that you see here on your screen. And there's lots of factors that contribute to the rising numbers of COVID-19 infections that we won't really have an opportunity to get into today. But I do want to stress that the number of new infections nationally is not declining. I'm not an epidemiologist, so I like to think about numbers in ways that correlate to things that I can see or experience. The Centers for Disease Control reported on August 2nd that there were 4,601,526 cases of COVID. So that pans out to be about 1,404 cases for every 100,000 Americans. So imagine filling the big house with 100,000 random Americans, and 1,400 of them would have been diagnosed with COVID-19. 1,400 mothers, sisters, friends, fathers, grandparents. This pandemic is really taking a toll on us as a community and nationally. In Michigan, there are 92,374 confirmed cases. And unfortunately, we've also had 6,463 deaths. And of those that are living with COVID in Michigan, more than half, actually 43,835, are female. And considering the caregiver role that many women play, it's important to also note that nearly 6,000 of those infected are children, and over 14,500 of those are 70 years and older. In Washtenaw County, there was a spike in June, towards the end of June, and then there was a subsequent spike after the 4th of July. There was a daily record high of 142 cases confirmed in just one day on July 11. The numbers are particularly higher in Ypsilanti and Clinton, which are some of the areas where you may find people living in poverty and having some social and economic mobility challenges. The combined zip codes make up 48.57% of all known cases in the county. If more than half of Michigan COVID-19 cases are attributed to females, and the same is true in Washtenaw County, it's 54% of the known cases are female. Take a second and factor in how gender inequality is playing into the epidemic. The disproportionate impact of unpaid caregiving on women and girls is one of the key factors contributing to gender inequality. Women spend 3 times as many hours as men in unpaid caregiver domestic work. Coronavirus lockdown has placed just an absorbent amount of burden on women in their careers and those with aspiring careers. The COVID-19 pandemic increases the urgency of recognizing and valuing careers for women and reducing gender bias because it presents enormous unexpected challenges associated with the increased caregiving. Supporting women who are studying for a career is a powerful and meaningful way to take action against gender inequality. When considering COVID-19 and poverty, let's just start with what we know. We know that there were over 150,000 Americans lost to COVID-19. And that loss of a spouse or a parent can come with a lot of financial burden as well as emotional. We know that because of the pandemic, many Americans are without work. The data about how income correlates with COVID-19 is still being explored, but based on observations, we do know that living in poverty can make prevention more difficult, and we know that women and girls are more likely to live in poverty. Let's just take a few moments and unpack what makes prevention more challenging for people who are experiencing poverty. So Governor Whitmore issued a moratorium on the practice of shutting off water in homes with unpaid bills back in March, because she knows that if you don't have access to water, You can't wash your hands. You can't do the things that you need to do to keep yourself safe from COVID-19. However, that didn't stop the bills from accruing. And this approach may save lives, but the beneficiary of water or even rent moratoriums are still facing financial ruin if they're not able to settle their debt when the bills come due. What about the recommendation to avoid close contact? If you don't have a house or adequate living space to isolate, prevention is a challenge. And let's not forget other correlates that lead to and cause homelessness for women, like domestic violence, lack of affordable housing, or the disparity between rent and income. These factors do not go away because of COVID-19. They were, in fact, exacerbated. Yes, there are some services in place, like hotels for people who are exposed that can't self-isolate. But space is limited, and many of those resources are being rationed. Cleaning and disinfecting. Sounds like reasonable activities for everyone, but even the most wealthy among us likely has had a challenge scoring Lysol. And people living in poverty are experiencing the brunt of the COVID-19 related price gouging and lack of access to cleaning supplies. This is such a problem that the Department of Justice issued a statement of commitment to preventing hoarding and price gouging for critical supplies during the crisis. Lastly, the challenge of monitoring health. Without question, access to COVID testing and access to medical providers in general has been a challenge in recent months. The shift from in-person care to telehealth has illuminated the digital divide. The basic tools to monitor one's health and the ability to appropriately react to a symptom of COVID-19 is difficult at best for people who are also experiencing poverty. Another factor related to health maintenance is food access. Women, and especially women of color, are more likely than men to live in poverty, placing them at an increased risk of food insecurity at a time where grocery stores and pantries are experiencing shortages. The rise in unemployment related to social distancing measures has large impact on sectors with high female employment. Women accounted for 55% of the $20.5 million $20.5 million jobs lost in April, raising the unemployment rate for adult women to 15% from 3%, which it was in February. In comparison, the unemployment rate for adult men was just 13%. Women of color fared worse with unemployment rates, Black women at 16.4% and Hispanic women at 20.2%. Problems for working mothers intensified because daycare centers and schools were ordered to close, and care that was or could be performed by grandparents or other relatives or friends or neighbors is being discouraged or prevented by shelter-in-place orders to slow down the spread of the virus. Because they are at the intersection of ethnicity and gender, women of color are especially likely to bear the brunt of this public health crisis. As a result of historical, structural inequities and discrimination, women of color face the compounded harms and challenges associated with both their gender and their ethnicity. In Washtenaw County, Blacks and people who identify as African American make up 31% of COVID-19 cases, 40% of the hospitalizations, and 30% of the deaths. But they only make up 12.3% of the population. In a time when we are asked to physically distance, there's an increased need for social support. As people face economic challenges and make hard choices about what to buy or what bills to pay, technology such as cell phones or personal computers that were once seen as a luxury are vital to staying connected. It's also important to note that isolation has negative health impacts. Data on the negative health impacts of social isolation were documented well before COVID-19. Loneliness is a pervasive and growing problem. And this is particularly true with Generation Z, those 18 to 24-year-olds. Based on a 2018 study, they are the loneliest generation. We often attribute loneliness to older people. And yes, social isolation can be a problem at any stage of life. But during this pandemic, our college-age young people may have a predisposition to loneliness. And just to recap, the current pandemic has different effects on different populations. The data available to us today tells a story. It tells a story about men and men likely to get COVID. They are slightly more likely to die from it, often leaving behind their wives and families. It tells us women are more positive, and both prevention and treatment are more challenging for people in poverty. It tells us that people of color, especially Hispanics and Blacks, are more likely to die from COVID-19 when compared to whites. It tells us a story about some of the challenges women in our communities are experiencing, and even some of the women enrolled at the Washtenaw County Community College. So I hope that this presentation provides just an overview of how complicated and intricate COVID-19 is impacting both women, people of color, and people who are living in poverty. And at this point, if you have any questions in the chat, I'd like to respond to questions and have a little.
Are there any questions in the chat box?
I don't see any just yet.
And there might be some after, and we can go back and review those at that time.
Yes, I'm happy to answer later. So if you have some, just put them in the chat and then we can come back to them.
I will also put the link to the Women's Council Foundation webpage here in the chat as well for reference.
Thank you, Deidre. Thank you so much for your remarkable work that you and your colleagues are doing. I would like to turn your attention to a short video about a Washtenaw Community College student who's been personally helped by the generosity of the community through the Washtenaw Community College Student Emergency Fund. Hundreds of students have received assistance. And so with that, I'll turn it back to the IT folks to run the video. It's very short. Please stay with us.
Growing up, all I was trying to do is survive. I probably was 9 before I could read on my own. It was an extreme situation. I knew in order to pursue my dreams, I would have to make a really hard decision. I ran away from home. I'd never been in a classroom before. I was terrified, but I so badly wanted to understand it, and I wanted to stay positive. And even though I wasn't understanding it now, maybe I'll understand it in a week. My eyes had degenerated to a point where I was going to need a pair of distance glasses and a pair of reading glasses. I didn't think that they would be able to give me the funds so that I'd have to choose either to put off learning how to drive another couple of years, or choose a reading pair of glasses so that I can continue to work. To my surprise, they were able to cover both pairs. Bonnie Trun, who had showed me where the foundation scholarship was and how I could apply for it. I didn't have very high hopes that I would be able to qualify for it, but to my great surprise, I was able to earn the foundation scholarship. I wasn't going to have to get an extra job to support myself that semester. My life has been changed. I've been able to receive these really astounding grades that surprised me. I want to tell all of my benefactors that have donated to the scholarships and the emergency funds, thank you. I'm really, really grateful. The donations they give change students' lives. Now I am not just surviving, I am thriving.
Thank you. That was just very moving and incredible. I'm now going to turn this over to Tina Casoli, who is the Director of Major Gifts and Development for the Washtenaw Community College Foundation, and she'll speak to us a little bit more about the fund. Tina?
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here, and thanks for everybody for participating. It's wonderful to see so many friendly faces and familiar faces. I miss you all being in person. Hopefully just a minute ago, you received a text from me, from the foundation, to give you a little bit more information about how you might be able to support if you're interested. It's an opportunity. Hopefully the video provided some inspiration, and I find it very moving and hope you did as well. With that text, you can certainly send a gift in direct via that text, or go to a link and get connected to the WCC Foundation website and make a gift in support of the Student Services Fund. You've heard so many good things about it in terms of how it benefits our students and really makes a difference keeping them in the classroom, which is our goal. It's the goal of the Women's Council. And what you're seeing on your screen right now is a copy of a brochure that's the Women Helping Women program that I will forward to you so you can take a little closer look at it. It's an opportunity to, again, support the Student Emergency Fund and the Resource Center at the college. There are 3 different ways you can participate. It's considered a monthly giving program, although donors can support it through quarterly gifts or monthly gifts. And the minimum to start is $25, so it's a pretty reasonable program. We're really proud of it. The Women's Council has raised a good amount of money with this program in the last year and a half or so. And as a donor, you will get to be part of a special program which we call our Women Helping Women, in WCC's version of the Shattering the Glass Ceiling, and get this handmade glass pin that a lot of our supporters are wearing, and that's something that'll come with your support. But really, it's a great way to get involved at a minimum level, and it really makes a significant difference. You see how the dollars have made a difference in some of our students' lives, and really it's so important. So thank you for thinking about that. If you do receive the text, sometimes, I'm not sure if you've done a text to give or not, but there's a slide that I'm going to have our IT guys put up, that if you text WCC Foundation to the number 56651, when that comes up, you will, it'll ask you how much you want to donate. So you put a dollar amount in there, and then they will send you a link that says a secure link where you can make your gift through the credit card, as well as a gift of your choice. And it's a secure program. So you'll see that when you enter in WCC Foundation to the 56651, and it's another way to support the college and our students. So thank you. I hope you'll consider it, and it's been a pleasure to have everybody involved today. Meredith?
Great. We have, now we can see everyone. We do have some questions, as it turns out, for Deidre.
One question is for Dr. Hurst. During your research, what have you found about the effects of COVID-19 on healthcare workers, especially the direct care workers who tend to be lower wage?
colleague who wasn't able to be here today was going to speak a little bit about that. They are doing some research in that area. It's definitely impacting frontline workers disproportionately. People that work in nursing homes, people that also had to work in grocery stores and all of those essential places. And we also tend to find that, again, those positions don't pay a lot. And so not only are they at higher risk of contracting COVID because they're in contact with a higher population of people who may have COVID, they also aren't getting paid a lot. And so they don't have a lot of the economic resources and economic mobility that others have. And that also contributes to their ability to prevent COVID. There was a question in the chat from Tim and Ann about the Hispanic population. And so I put in the chat for everyone the link to the Washtenaw County webpage. If they have up-to-date stats, based on their website, there was 4% of the population living with or diagnosed with COVID are Hispanic or Latino. Are there any other questions?
I think there's one about, do you know how working women are solving childcare issues?
Yes, childcare, we hear a lot about childcare issues. Since the stay-at-home order is lifted, many of the women are doing like shift changes where they may have a mother who will, if they work first shift and they have a friend who has children, they work second shift, and they can just kind of switch off. But it still is really a huge issue, especially since many schools are starting virtually or delaying their start. And there's just a lot of uncertainty. And when people are working in positions where they don't have paid time off, and they also don't have the ability to make their schedule more regular, a lot of the positions that don't pay a lot tend to have schedules that, you know, get posted the week before, which makes childcare even more complicated. So it's a continued issue, and it's through support, through these efforts that, you know, women that are in school and working maybe have the opportunity to get the laptop so that they can take a virtual class at the same time as they're home with their kids who maybe have to go online virtually. It's very difficult.
Deidre, this is Meredith. I just wanted to ask you a quick question. There's been so much work done on the isolation of folks who would fall into the older category. And I know there's been studies on social determinants of health and the like. Were you surprised by the findings of young people in isolation, that there are more concerns now that we should, during COVID, pay attention to young people between, I think it was 18 and 24 maybe?
Yeah, that Generation Z, as the mother of 2 kids that fall in that window, I'm not surprised at all. Even though, you know, there is lots of technology, young people today are really feeling isolated, and they were feeling isolated before COVID-19. And so once you remove, you know, the actual school where they could gather together and all of their interactions tend to be online, it can be very isolating for them. I think that we don't realize how connected we really are until we had that kind of stripped from us. And so, you know, it's important to look for ways to stay connected. I always say we want to physically distance, not necessarily socially, right? We want to stay connected. And, you know, students, young people, this is a time when they really need to hear encouragement, that they need to know that someone is out there in the universe rooting for them. And so being connected during this time is very important.
Deidre, I think we have one more question here. Where do Latino groups fit in on the chart showing cases by race?
Yeah, that's the one that I responded to in the chat. I didn't know if we were going to go back.
Okay.
So I put the link for Washtenaw County's webpage. But in Washtenaw County, they make up about 4% of the population that are confirmed to have COVID. And nationally, I think the Hispanic Latino population is impacted disproportionately in areas like New York and also in Texas. The data here in Michigan, it shows some disparity, but not as much as it does in New York and in Texas.
That's great, thank you. Dr. Blanca, do you have anything else or final words that you want to share or say before we head out? We're pretty much time, so this is great.
I'm sorry, I pressed the wrong button. But
That's all right.
first of all, what a touching presentation, Deidre. I mean, just amazing. And the reason I wasn't paying attention is because I was trying to figure out how to give. Because so many of us are so blessed to be able to give. And thank you. Because it's, sometimes we're helpless in regards to how we can do something to help. I mean, I don't know how I can help, go out there and help. So the only way I can is either, through what I do every day, but by sharing what I can share. So thank you. And thank you for allowing us the opportunity to do that for those of us that wish to. And I think that, looking at it is very, looking at all that data is very concerning to me, because you're absolutely right. I never even thought about the fact that they lost their child care if they can't visit if they have grandparents or relatives. I mean, everything has really fallen apart away from them. So thank you. Thank you, Deidre. Thank you so much. And Meredith, thank you for for presenting and the outstanding presentation today. And Eileen Thacker, I see you. And for starting this, the glass ceiling and breaking the glass ceiling or whatever we're calling it. But thank you so much, because it's given so many of us a reason to feel good. So thank you. And thank you, all of you, for your support of our college. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. This is Meredith again. Thank you, Dr. Blanca. Thank you, Deidre, for the incredible research, Tina and Phil, for all your work. Thank you to all my friends and family I see from across the country and in Michigan. Really, thank you so much for joining us today. This is such an important issue, and no one is untouched by COVID and the economic crisis and the challenges that we have on social justice. And so joining together in this effort to sort of blend our community and our community college has been an honor for me. And so with that, I want to wish you all the best. Have a great rest of the day. And again, thank you for joining us and starting this very, very important fundraiser and community conversation. Tina, I'll turn it back to you and we can close out.
Thank you, Meredith, and thank you, everybody. We are officially concluded. However, we are going to leave the screen up, and if you want to chat with each other, I don't think you can verbally. I think you're fully muted, but you can certainly chat with each other, or if you have questions of me, my number is here. Email or phone number, certainly reach out at any point. I'm happy to have a conversation, and I look forward to staying in touch. So thank you again.